Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of what Bridge can do, let's take a look at the preferences. And bear with me here. This is going to be just a little bit boring, but it's important to get the most out of the program. Now, preferences located at the bottom of the drop-down list under Edit. And you'll click on it and see this dialog panel come up. It's got quite a bit on it. And so under General, we can adjust the appearance of the program. We can adjust the workspace for the photograph, or what they call the image backdrop. Accent color I just leave on default. Now under behaviors, a couple of choices here that are interesting. Double click edits camera raw settings in Bridge. I don't want that. I want that to stay just the way it is. Now, control on the PC or command on the Mac plus click or left click opens the loop when previewing or reviewing. You want to leave that checked. Number of recent items to display is 10, and under favorites, I personally just want my computer. I don't need my documents, libraries, desktop, or my pictures. I don't use any of those folders, except maybe for Phil. So I'll just leave that the way it is. Now I'm going to get out of the preferences dialog box for just a second here to show you what this control plus click opens the loop, what that is and what it means. Let's go ahead and hit OK. And as we scroll through our images, these are the TIFFs. Some images I shot in Yosemite National Park, and of course I want these to be as sharp as possible, so in order to get a real close look on it, I just hit Control on the PC or Command on the Mac and then left click, and this little magnification doodad comes up, and I can grab it and scroll it around, take a look at my image, make sure everything is as sharp as it should be. And this image is reasonably sharp, but it is just a little bit soft, so you know, again, I can know that by just go and control click and bring it up this loop. Click it again to get rid of it. Come to my next image. Control on the PC, command on the Mac, click, and I get the magnifying loop coming up. Now it looks pixelated until the image fully loads, and then I can just scrub it and move it around, and this image was way soft. And I had a calibration problem with my lenses in the 5D Mark II. That was a major problem with that camera, that you always had to calibrate your lenses, and I think this is the period of time when I didn't know that it wasn't calibrated. My images were softer than they should have been. And so that's what you'll learn after every shoot, is to come in and look at the loop. So let's go ahead back to preferences, and we'll take a look now at the thumbnails panel, and only thing I want is to show when it was created. I know what the dimensions are, I don't care about the keywords, and I know what the size is. All I want is the date created. Okay, let's go to playback, and this has more to do with audio and video, which I don't do in Bridge. Stacks, you can play back the frame rate at 30 per second, so I just ignore that. Metadata, now this is where you could spend quite a bit of time. This is the metadata information you want displayed on the files and also in the IPTC documentation. So you notice here, file name, preserved document type, application to date created, the date file modified, the file size, I don't need dimensions in inches, resolution, bit depth, color mode, color profile, all that stuff I want in there. And let's just keep going. We'll put the IPTC information in later after the images have been imported into Bridge. That's a manual process. The IPTC core is in there based on all the information that the camera deposits on the image. IPTC extensions, camera data, yeah, definitely want all that in there. Camera owner name, I don't need that. Now that I'm looking at it, there are some things I can change. Brightness value, the ISO, I thought I had that in there. Yeah, there it is. ISO, speed latitude, no. I'm changing some of these things now that I'm looking at it. But you can see that you can dictate how it's displayed. If you've got one of those GPS things that sits on your hot shoe, plugs into your camera, and it deposits the GPS information, it'll all come up. All your camera raw information. It's just infinite the amount of information that you can have displayed. Edit, DICOM information, even information about your mobile flash settings can be dictated in Bridge. Keywords. I just leave this pretty much the way the default. And then you can assign labels to things. And so instead of navigating down to click on a red, you can just go Control-6 and assign an image a rating. File type associations. Now this is something you should probably spend a little bit of time with, because when you double click on things, certain programs will open based on the settings that you apply here. So we can go through and see all of the settings. Now for camera raw, I don't want either one of those to come up, so I'm going to browse the association. And since I cannot find an exe file For Adobe Camera Raw, we'll just leave it the way it is and say Adobe Photoshop CS6. Now when Photoshop detects that this is a RAW file, it will automatically open Adobe Camera Raw. These Cineon files, CompuServe or GIF files, all this stuff, all these file associations can be dictated, and you can more or less tell Photoshop what kinds of images you want it to open Bridge to for that matter. So we'll just go ahead and click on it to keep that, and let's go back to the preferences and the cache. Keep 100% previews in cache. Nothing wrong with the default settings on that. Startup scripts. Don't ask me why. Like, I don't need this, and I don't need this, and the rest of them I pretty much want, but every time I change it and then look at it again, it automatically checks this and this. Don't ask me why. I can't tell you. But if you have more success with getting these settings to stick, well, then give me a call and let me know how you did it. All right, let's go ahead and click OK for that. And then advanced, leave this the way it is. These default settings are very, very good, and you ought to just leave well enough alone. And then your output, converting multi-byte file names to full ASCII. I just leave this the way it is, and I don't click on Preserve Embedded Color Profile because there is a scenario under which if I know this is going to go to internet use only, then I will go ahead and change this to an sRGB color space, so I want the ability to do that. I don't want to dictate that this is preserved by any stretch of the imagination. So we just hit OK, and then all of those preferences are saved. Now from this point forward, it becomes a lot easier to use Bridge in the way that you do your post. That's the great thing about Bridge, is that it's so customizable that you can make it do just about anything you want.